Normally trade we can divide into two sectors. Trade we can divide into two sectors, local and international. Local trade and international trade. Local trade also known as domestic trade. Local trade also be known as domestic trade. Local and international, or domestic and international. Local trade again we are divided into wholesale and retail. This concept we have discussed previously when we discussed about supply chain and distribution channel. This we discussed. Wholesale and what is retail. But here we are going to discuss in deep. An international trade, there are two sections, import and export. Right? Now these all four sectors we are going to cover today in the trade. Local trade, international trade, wholesale, retail, and import and export. Right. As we discussed, wholesale and retail. Normally wholesale is B2B operation. Right? Wholesale is business to business operation, while retail is B2C. Retailers always interfere with end customers or end users of the particular product, but wholesalers are connecting with business parties. Now wholesalers are selling to retailers, retailer is the business part. Now wholesale and retailer, the connectivity, the business model is B2B, that means business to business. If you consider the back end of the wholesaler, wholesale is buying from manufacturer also business. The manufacturer, wholesaler, then to retail. This is also B2B and this is also B2B. Then we can say the retailer is B2B, but wholesale is B2B, retail is B2C, business to consumer. Right. The definition: wholesalers are selling of goods in bulk but cheaper rates. Wholesalers are selling goods in cheaper rates. They are not cost. These are not cost. But they are selling in cheaper rates. Why? They are selling bulks. Right? Then they can earn the volume profit. Economies of scale. Right? The margin of one product is very low, but they are selling bulks, then they can increase their profit margin as a whole. But the marginal profit is very low, then we can get cheap. We can say they are selling in cheap. But retailers sells goods to the end customers or end users in higher rates. Why? They are buying from wholesalers and keep margin and selling to consumers. Then end users in the higher rates, right? They are buying higher rates and limited quantities. But retailers are not buying like wholesalers. Wholesalers are buying for large number of retailers. As an example, think I am buying soaps. I am buying soaps to sell supermarkets. Now supermarkets are retailers. Right? Now I am going to sell Cargill's, Apico, right? And Kiehl's, Satos, all those retailers I am selling. Then I need a quantity, right? I need a quantity to sell all those retailers. Then I am buying large quantities. But retailers are buying small quantities, right? Small quantities, but quantity is limited in retail. And cost is less in wholesale. Retailer, the cost is high. Why? Wholesalers need a considerable warehouse, but retailers don't know warehouse, but the cost is going up. Why? Not because of the warehouse, because of the retailers' cost is high because they need retail shops, they need attraction of consumers, they have to provide access for customers. Customers supposed to come in and select their products, what they are going to buy. They have to select from the shelf, right? They need space to move shopping carts, they have to invest for shopping carts, cashiers, right? And attraction, air conditions, right? And interiors, they have to spend for all those. Then retailers' cost is going up. The business size, also the business is very large. That is big, right? That is spread over a large geographical area. As an example, if I am the wholesaler for one product, then I have to provide goods for different retailers all over the island. In Sri Lankan context, all over the island, I have to say. But in retailers are buying low quantity, and retailers are limited to a small area. As an example, if I have one grocery shop, then that is very small business, right? That is very small business. But just think about Dali Butler or Nestle or Unilever, then they are big, right? Then they have to maintain different facilities, even transport and everything they have to provide as wholesalers. Capital investment is very high in wholesale. Retail, that is low. Capital is low, but the cost, it cost me the running cost that is going up, right? But the capital is very high when you start in wholesale business. Why? We need transport network. You have to invest for transport. You have to invest for all those, what do you mean, warehouses, right? But the retailer initial cost, the capital is very low. It's not like wholesale, right? They don't want large capacity warehouses. They need warehouse capacity, but that is not big like wholesalers. Promotion for wholesalers, the promotion is not required. That is not important. But the retailers need the promotion. Then only consumers are going to particular place. As an example, if I am willing to buy, and if I am looking to buy a mobile phone, as an example thing, I am looking about Huawei, right? Then I am thinking about from where I can buy this. Then, if they have promoted their retail stations, right? Then we can go that particular place. Then why? The retailers have promoted their business. But the promotion for wholesale is not required. Then they are directly selling for retailers. The customer is not supposed to know that is not important. That is not important. That customers to know what is this? Who is the wholesale? Right. As an example, if you are buying something from your supermarket, then that is not necessary to know from where this retailer is buying this product, right? Then wholesaler don't want promotions, but retailer need the promotion. And finally, the display attraction. Display attraction is not required for wholesalers. Why? End customers are not going to that particular place. then they are not bothering about display attraction. They are not bothering about display attraction, but in the context of retailer, they need the display attraction. Retailers need display attraction, and retailers need to know about customer requirements, and they have to arrange their display according to that, right? The attraction is very important in retail context, but for wholesalers that is not required. Right, this is the difference between wholesale and retail business. Right, then international trade context. Right, international trade, we know that there are two arms in international trade: import and export, as I explained in the first slide. Right, import and export. Why is more people are more business parties are trying to adapt with international trade? Why they trying to involve with international trade? Right, there are many reasons for that. One is more profit opportunities. If they are involved in international trade, they can earn large profit. Larger market size is huge. Large market size compared to local trade. Now, local traders' market is limited to the domestic market. They don't have reach to overseas markets. But in the international trade, they have reach and access to international market, and the market size is larger than the local market. Then they can earn larger profit portion by engaging with international trade. And the second reason is access to raw materials and services. Now, quality raw materials we can import. From overseas. Now, sometimes we don't have sufficient quantities in local market, then we can purchase balanced part overseas. As an example, just think about rubber manufacturers, tire manufacturers in Sri Lanka. The local market rubber supply is not sufficient. Then what they can do is they can buy required raw materials from Malaysia or some other countries. Right? Then we have access to raw materials and some other services. Not available in domestically, that is not available, then we have access to that services. Then international trade is very important. That reason, then business people, they are trying to engage in international trade in that case. And third is the competitive advantage. Competition. The competitive advantage we can gain with the competition. But competition is very complex in international context. Higher level of competitive advantage they can gain with the international trade. Why? That is higher level of competitive advantage since both domestic and international competitors. For in the international trade context, they have competition in domestic market as well as foreign market. Then that is global competition. But the domestic trade, they are in only local or the domestic competition. Then they have very small competition by comparing with the international market. Then competitive advantage is very higher level of competitive advantage they can gain in the international trade context. And tax benefits. In the international trade, there are some tax releases, especially for some exporters, they are getting those tax releases. If you are trying to promote our products, then they are getting those tax releases. Why? To encourage them, they can gain that benefit. But on the other side, some importers they have to pay more taxes. In the next topic we will discuss, next lesson we will discuss how the government is interfering with the business. That is separate lesson. Then now here what I am going to do is, in import tax, sometimes government is increasing import tax to discourage some importers. Right? As an example, to habit performing products like cigarettes, alcohol, then they can impose those taxes, and to protect local traders from substitutes, then they can impose taxes over some tariffs over substitute products. As an example, if you want protect our big onion farmer, then the government can impose tax over Bombay onions. Then local product will in cheaper prices in the market, Bombay product going up. But that is separate. I will explain that in next lesson. Minimizing the risk. How we can minimize the risk in the international trade? As an example, some disasters for specific now. COVID-19, that is disaster for the global. That is global disaster. No one can avoid that. Right? No country protected. But in some cases, some natural disasters are limited for a specific region. As an example, just think about tsunami. Tsunami, that is only for few countries. Right? That tsunami affected few countries, including Sri Lanka. Then in international trade, what is the benefit? But sometimes the local market will collapse, global market will retain in exact position. Then that is good for business survival. Right? Then that survival they can gain in different geographical market segments. Business is surviving different geographical market segments. That collapse in one area, one country, but in other countries, the business is survive as a whole. Easy disposal of surpluses. Now, what happened to the surplus? National surplus. Nationally, there may be a surplus. The surplus we can dispose to overseas countries. We can export those. Right? Then you have that opportunity. We have that opportunity in international trade. As an example, think US. Right? Their wheat flour production, not the flour, actually wheat production, that is not only for their market. That is not for domestic consumption. They are producing, there's a surplus. They have a big production. Right? Then definitely there is a surplus. That surplus they are exporting to several countries, including Sri Lanka. Right? Several countries are importing those surplus. They can expose those surplus. Right? Sometimes they are dumping all those to sea to protect the market stability, the price stability. As an example, in economics you are learning, if the supply goes up, definitely the price is going down of the commodity. For that they are limiting their supplies. For that what they have to do is they have to freeze those products into the market. Anyhow, if they have excess production or the surplus, definitely they can export. Right? That is easy to dispose surpluses. And the reputation is improved, enhanced reputation. Right? Then doing different countries, that is normally that boost your brand, that increase your brand loyalty and brand value, everything, right? Doing businesses in other countries, that is boosting your company's reputation. Success in one country can influence to success in other countries, right? Then your profile is going up. As an example, the international countries, why we like to buy Apple products, why we have a competition to purchase that, why there is a demand for Apple products in Sri Lanka. Just think. Main reason is because of other demand in other countries. Demand in other countries. I can remember the first Apple phone launch in USA. First Apple iPhone launch, right? There was a big queue near the Apple company, Apple Corporation. You know why? To buy the first Apple phone. To be the proud owner of first set of Apple iPhones. Right? Now they had that reputation in US, but that is broadcast and telecast over all channels over the world. Then other people also think, why this reputation for that product? Then you all are trying to experience the brand. Then you are getting definitely due to international trade. If that particular product is limited to US, then they are not reputed company like this, right? That is reputed because they are in international world, they are in global market, they are in global marketplace. That is the main reason, right? These are the reasons, those are the main reasons that international trade, why business parties they are international, adapting to international trade, why they are going to involve in import and export. These are the reasons. Right. This is another to learn. Right. These are some acronyms and some meanings of some shipping terms. Right. Not only international trade and the shipping, those industries are we can't separate those two industries. We can't even think about international trade without shipping, right? We can't think about successful shipping lines without international trade. In shipping, there are two types of ships: cargoes and passengers. Right? Cargo means they are transporting goods. As an example, those two ships came to Sri Lanka, and just one was sinked and other one was dragged to the country. Diamond and those two ships. CPT is one term we are using in shipping, right? Actually, we can say these are jargons of those shipping industry. CPT, DAP, FAS, FAS, FOB, CIF, DP. CTP is carriage paid to CPT. The shipment is CPT. If so, that CPT, the delivery of the good occurs when they are delivered to the seller to carrier at the agreed place. The recipient and the seller, they are agreed to, the seller agree with the buyer to deliver a specific location, right? Deliver by seller to the courier at the agreed place, right? They are delivering to that particular place in the agreement. That is CPT, carrier page 2. And another is The next term very important. There are hundreds of thousands of terms we can identify, but I am explaining few. DAP, deliver at place. DAP, delivered at place. Carrier paid to. Now this is delivered at place. Right? Delivered place. The goods are deemed to delivered by the seller to buyer when they are put at the disposal of the buyer on the transportation vehicle ready for unloading at the place of destination. Now they have to make ready the next container to load these, right? Unload all this stuff, the shipment, and they have to load it to another. The particular vehicle, transportation vehicle, is ready for that unloading in the place of destination, right? That is that delivered at place, that particular place. Fasci is free alongside ship. Free alongside ship. That is free with the ship. Right? After that, no. Responsible. That responsibility is, the seller's responsibility is limited while those cargo is in the ship. Those goods in the ship, while that goods in the ship, then seller is responsible. After that, seller is not responsible. The seller delivers good when either places them alongside the ship vessel nominated by the buyer. Buyer is nominating the ship. In buyer side, they are nominating the ship, this ship. Then they are the people booking the ship. Nominated by the ship. Booking, not nominating. Nominating the ship by buyer at the named port. At the named port. Then agreed port, that may be Colombo, Bandung, or any port. Calcutta, any port. Port of shipment, or it produces the goods or delivered. The risk damage to the goods is transferred from seller to buyer when the goods are alongside the ship. Right? Then that is buyer's responsibility. Why? Alongside the ship, they are not responsible. Why? Buyer is nominated the ship. FOB, free on board. Free on board. On board means that the port, right? The goods are deemed to be delivered by the seller to buyer when they are delivered on the board. On board the ship nominated by the buyer. At the named port of shipment, or the seller procures the goods or delivered. Then FOB is free on board, that is deliver into particular port. CIF, cost, insurance and freight. CIF stands for cost, insurance and freight. Then the cost, insurance and freight charges to be paid by the seller. That is CIF price. Then we don't want to pay any insurance charge or freight charge from our side. They are charging for the cost of goods and the freight cost as well as insurance. That is already in the product. When we are caught in from goods from overseas, we can ask what is the CIF price. Then definitely they will give you a CIF price, that is cost, freight and insurance included in the price. DPU, delivered at place unloaded, that is the former DAT. The delivery of the goods by the seller to the buyer occurs when the goods are unloaded from the transportation vehicle and put at the disposal of the buyer at the place of the destination or at the agreed point within the place destination of, if any. Right? This was changed. DPU is the new one that after I think 2020, right? That was that. Previously that was that. Now that is DP. Those are the terms that we are using in shipping. That for your understanding. Right. International payment methods. How we can pay for orders. How we can pay for orders. Right? We can pay for orders in different methods we can use to pay in international trade. In international trade, we can use different methods, different methods to pay. Right? But not like domestic sales. In domestic sales, we can give money, right? We can give cash, and we can give checks. But all those are not valuable. All those are not valid for international trade. Those are not valid for international trade. In the international trade, they have separate methods of payment. Cash in advance. Cash in advance. Cash in advance means that traders are not not delivering goods. They need cash upfront. Before goods deliver, they need cash. After that, they are delivering goods. Right? That is avoiding the credit risk. Credit is very risky thing. Then sometimes business people, then once they deliver products, they are not paying. Right? This is very secure method. Cash in advance. There's a risk, but of the delivery. Cash in advance payment term can help an exporter avoid credit risks because payment is received upfront before the ownership of the goods is transferred. Then before we transfer the ownership of good, then cash received, the exporter received the cash. For international sales, wire transfers and credit cards are the most common used cash in advance. We can use many methods. Credit card payments we can pay cash in advance, and some bank transfers we can do. Those are wire payments, right? One to one we can pay. But intermediary, different banks are charging different bank charges, right? That is deducted from the amount they are transferring. Anyway, the method is cash in advance is upfront payment is expecting the exporter before release goods. And LC or letter of credit, that is very common and secure method, is a credit letter issued by the bank. Then two banks are involved in buyer's bank or importer's bank and exporter's banks are get involved to settle the payment. A letter of credit or credit letter, simply known as LC, is one of the most secure payment method available to international traders. Why these two commercial banks are getting involved in with LC payment processing? It is a letter from a bank guaranteeing that the buyer's payment to a seller will be received on time and for the correct amount, and it is done of the most secure payment method available to the international traders. That assurance is given by the bank, that is bank guarantee. Bank guarantee is given that amount money will available or transferred in correct amount in correct time. Correct amount in correct time. This is very secure method. A letter of credit is useful when well-founded credit information about a foreign buyers does not exist or is difficult to secure, but the exporter is satisfied with the creditworthiness of the buyer's foreign bank. Why this bank is responsible for transferring money, then there is a trustworthiness about the credit, that is creditworthiness. A letter of credit also protects the buyer, as they do not need to make a payment until goods have been shipped as promised. Now this is very secure method. Now there is assurance that goods are received to the buyer. Without receiving goods as promised, buyers are not going to pay. Why this bank is involved in to payment, right? Then once the bank is paying once we receive the goods, right? LC, letter of credit. This is very popular payment method is documentary collection. In documentary collection also a bank is involving, right? In the documentary collection process, the seller instructs the bank to forward documents. Related documents is forwarded by the bank to export of goods to buyer's bank with an instructions to present these documents to buyer to payment, pointing when and on what circumstances these documents can be released to the buyer. The two banks are involved in with this, right, in the document collection. Funds are received from the importer and transferred to the exporter through the banks involved in the collection of exchange. For those documents, documentary collections involve using the draft that requires the import to the pay of the face amount either at the site or not the specified date. The collection letter gives instruction that the specify the document is required for the transfer of title to the goods, although banks do act as the facilitators to their clients. Documentary collections offer no verification process and limited resources in the event of non-payment. This is also very secure. Right, this document hand over to the bank, then two banks are involved in the payment and document transfer. Open account. Open account transaction is a sale where the goods are shipped and delivered before payment is due. Right, this is actually credit method, which the international sales is typically in 30, 60 or 90 days. Obviously, this method based on the trustworthiness between the two parties. And this is one of the most advantageous option in the importer in terms of cash flow and cost, but is consequently on the highest risk options for an exporter. There is a higher risk for exporter. Why? They are not getting upfront payment. This is a credit method. 30, 60 or 90 days. That time period that is depend on the trustworthiness of between two parties involved in the foreign trade. That is between importer and exporter. Right. Consignment. Right. Consignment is another method of an open account in which payment is sent to exporter only after the goods are sold by the foreign distributor to end customer. Right. That is happening in the supply chain. In supply chain, that is, customer is getting with the goods, then that is only the consignment. That is the consignment, right? An international consignment transaction is based on contractual agreement in which the foreign distribution is used, manages and sells the goods for the exporter, who retains title of the goods until they have sold. Right? This is another method of payment, consignment. Right? Now we discussed main 5 methods of payment: cash in advance, letters of credit or LC, document recollections, open account, consignment. These are the methods of payment. Right. Procedures of export in export procedures. These are the steps that to be followed by exporters when they are exporting. Right? Export registration, import identification, export license, shipping, export license, importer intent, freight insurance, shipping, invoicing, collection. This is the way. This is the first step. First step, second step, third step, fourth, right. Exporter registration, right? Exporter registration is important part, right? Exporter is supposed to register, right? Normally exporter registration, exporter is supposed to register in different firms in Sri Lankan context, right? The trader should register them as exporters with Export Development Board in the EDB, right? In the EDB, exporter is supposed to register Export Development Board. EDB stands for Export Development Board. And Sri Lanka Customs and Inland Revenue Department, right? Exporters to be registered in these three locations. That is very important, right? Then the second step is import identification. Registered exporters identify appropriate importers. Now, as an example, what we are going to import, then importer identification intended the relevant importers from where we are going to import this. Then we have to whom we are going to export. That who is buying this, that is export identification. Then we have to think about the export license. The license of exporting the good that to be obtained by the exporter, right? They have to disclose all articles of exporter. Then we have to give some specifications, many information. Some information we have to provide. Sometimes we have to provide those in customs, right? Different circumstances. They are asking different documents. Then definitely exporters should support those things. And importer intent is obtaining the confirmed requirement. This may be a purchase requisition, like that. Something very important thing they have to release. Then the freight and insurance. Ship or the aircraft. Shipment means if there is on ship or aircraft, we are saying shipment, right? Commonly we can say that freight, right? That may be sea freight or air freight, right? Normally when we are using this term as the shipping, right? The ship or aircraft is booked to the transport to the goods and required insurance policy. We have to insure those goods what we are transferring, right? That is based on the terminology what we discussed. That may be FOB or CIF or DAP or CPT, any agreement. We have to provide a suitable insurance policy. Then the goods are shipped and exporter gets the bill of landing. The shipping line of the ship is releasing bill of landing. Then next step is invoicing. The exporter prepares the invoice for the value of goods and order and the other expenses they have to get. That is invoice. All those to be included in the. And finally, the original documents are exchanged to the payments receivable by the exporter. And these steps, 8 steps to be followed in export. These are the procedures. This is the export procedure. Import procedure is bit different. Vendor selection, price inquiry, import license, issuing intent, payment arrangement, document collection, clearance and release of goods. These are 8 steps in import procedures. Right? Export procedure and import procedure both have 8 steps. Vendor selection, that means we have to select who is the supplier, from which country or which company we are going to buy. That is vendor selection. The importer should find out exporter who can supply the required goods and acceptable quantity and affordable price. That is the vendor selection. Who can supply in the quantity, affordable price and expected quantity. Correct quantity and expected price and on time. Then selecting the vendor. Then the making price inquiry, the vendor vendor means the exporter who is exporting. Vendor and the importer, the vendor is providing the quotation, or sometimes that may be a quotation or that may be a pro forma invoice. Pro forma invoice is selling prior to the sale, right? That is the price inquiry. The license of importing goods, particular good, right? The license of importing the good to be obtained by the importer. Disclose in the articles to be imported. What are the things to be provided, that to be produced, and next issuing the intent. Issuing the intent means communicating the requirement to be the exporter, requesting to prepare the goods to be delivered. Then that is the intent. And payment arrangement, we can follow any of payment arrangement, letter of credit or anything, any method we can follow for the payment arrangement, right? And document collection, original documents sent by the exporter are collected by the importer, right? And that is after the satisfied payment arrangement by the bank. Clearance means the importer is submitting required documents to the customs and clearing the document, and custom is releasing goods. These are the 8 steps of import procedures: vendor selection, price inquiry, import license, issuing intent, payment arrangement, document collection, clearance and release of goods. Import and export. Right. Then these are documents in foreign trade. Pro forma invoice, right? Pro forma invoice, commercial invoice, certificate of origin, bill of lading, insurance certificate, letter of indemnity, and sanitary certificate. What are those? Pro forma invoice. Pro forma invoice is, there is also one invoice, but that is not the commercial invoice, right? That is produced by the exporter that is to provide information about goods of the confirmation by import. Right? What are the goods to be transferred, delivered, exported? Then those to be included, those information and price factors to be included in the pro forma invoice. Then all other payment arrangements and everything happens based on pro forma invoice, not the commercial invoice. Pro forma invoice to be provided prior to the commercial invoice in export, right? And that is including some information such as price of goods and quantities, transportation type, freight cost, right? Like that, insurance, packing, everything to be declared in the pro forma invoice, right? And the commercial invoice, that is the official invoice, the final invoice, right? The final invoice communicating the value of goods and other charges. That is the final invoice. The final charges to be included in the commercial invoice, that is the final invoice. And the certificate of origin. Certificate of origin, that is the verification of the country of origin of the good. As an example, if you are buying mobile phone or any technological thing, that may be a vehicle or something, right? And the country of origin, the certificate of origin to be produced to verify the country where the goods traded were produced. Production, where this production, made in which country, right? In Japan or China. That is certificate of origin. And bill of landing, or this is known as bill of landing, or BL. BL. Why this BL? BL to verify the contract between the shipper of the goods and the courier. The importer needs to origin as proof of ownership to take the possession of the goods. Now this bill of loading. Bill of loading means these goods are shipped in this particular aircraft or ship. Insurance certificate, that is the verification of this verified. And letter of indemnity, that is verifying the exporter accept the all risk of any possible damages to the goods shipped, and hence the request in the ship to provide a clean bill of landing, right? Clean bill of landing. Now this is regarding the security of goods, right? Then this is verification. The exporter accept the all risks. The exporter has accepted the risk. That is also to be produced by exporter. And sanitary certification. Sanitary certification means sanitary certification to be issued by some authorized regulatory bodies in some countries. As an example, when we are exporting fish or meat, right? Normally we are not exporting meat, but we are exporting fish, right? When we are exporting fish, we have to get health certificate about the shipment of the goods what we are sending, really the fishes, right? That is health certificate. That's to be issued by Ministry of Fisheries, right? Like that, sanitary certificates are required. These are main points that we have to discuss on the documentation. These are the documents required for foreign trade. Right. When operating in globally, we get involved with foreign trades, right? Foreign trade. Then we are trading in global environment, right? Global environment. In this global environment is very important to study. right? Global environment, very important to study. Like we should know what is the position of global environment, which products we can produce to which country, right? Can we export this product to these countries? What are the trade agreements between different countries? Then what are the agreements between some communities like European community, right? And what are the international relationship between, that is global trade and global environment. We should be alert on this global environment. The global business environment can be defined as the environment in different sovereign countries. Sovereign countries. These are sovereign countries. That means independent countries with factors exogenous to the home environment of the organization, influencing decision making on the resources use and capabilities of the global business environment can be classified into external environment and internal environment. That is also, now we discuss this global environment, we can classify it as internal environment and external environment, that is separate story, right? This also we can divide global environment, that is external global factors, some factors we discussed in that particular lesson, right? Then different countries, they have some restrictions or they have some encouragement regarding international trade. Some countries are not dealing with each other, some are dealing with each other, some countries are not expecting goods from some other countries, right? Some countries are trying to be develop their countries without international trade. They are trying to develop without international trade, just like Cuba, right? And but when we are in international environment, if we are in international trade, definitely we have to think about this global trade environment, global business environment. This is very important fact to think. This is one. Trade sanctions. Trade sanctions mean that some penalties imposed by one nation into one or more other nations, right? Penalties. Sanctions can be unilateral, imposed by one country on the other country, or multilateral, imposed by one to more countries. There are different countries are in trade sanctions. As an example, quotas. Given quotas, now we are buying this particular quota, but after that, no, this is the quota we are giving. And tariffs, right? And embargoes. Embargoes mean those are trade restrictions, especially economic restrictions. Embargoes, right? We are not exporting to this particular country. As an example, Sri Lankan fishing industry, we face one international restriction like that. That is from European Union. That is known as European ban. European ban. European ban means European countries, they wanted to restrict fish from Sri Lanka. What is the reason? But these countries are saying the method of shipping is not sustainable in Sri Lanka. The method of shipping is not sustainable in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is supposed to follow sustainable fishing method. What is the sustainability in fishing? Yes, that is true. Just think about, if these fishermen all are going to catch all female fishes, and what is happening after that? Another thing is, mainly they are highlighting not the male fishes and female fishes. They are highlighting how what we are doing. What kind of fishes we are catching in the boats or trawler or vessel, all are selling, all are eating, all are selling, right? We had a very small experience that throwing small fishes into the sea. We don't have such experience. What is happening? Small fishes that become another product. All are selling in the same stalls in Salaya Balaya. Right? That is, small fishes are another product. We are cooking that in another recipe, and like that we don't have that experience. We are not throwing small fishes, right? And other thing is our fishing nets are that was produced to catch any type of any size of fish, right? Small fishes to be thrown into the sea, and we should let them grow. Only big fish are supposed to catch. Other thing is when we are catching fishes, right? We are just throwing them into the boat or the ship or the vessel. Let them to die. We are throwing them. But the correct method, since I have worked in that industry, I know that normally in some countries how they are killing those big fishes, they are hanging the fish and shooting. Right? They are hanging the fish and they are shooting. That is the way they are killing. They are not going to put them down, and that is not happening. Right? That is not happening. Okay. Then, due to all those reasons, not only that, we have another international conflict in fishing. Mainly, we have conflicts with India. India have conflicts with Sri Lanka and Maldives. Maldives has those with Sri Lanka. Why? Our vessels are exceeding our limits. Our marine limits we are exceeding, and our people are fishing in Maldivian sea. Maldivian people they are fishing in our sea. They are on offenses on the sea. But next condition they have put is implement vessel monitoring system to avoid those. Right? Why I told all this? Just to understand what is this trade sanction. Right? There is one type of embargoes. Right? There is one type of embargoes and trade restrictions. That is one kind of trade restrictions. Right? And GSP plus, quota systems, tariffs, all those are we can categorize in this trade sanction, right, in global business environment. Right, we'll go ahead. Agreements. There are different types of agreements, right? Some are unilateral agreements, some are bilateral agreements, some are multilateral agreements between people. Unilateral agreements. Unilateral agreements mean there is one side agreement. One side agreement. That is one side agreement. Right? That is one side agreement. One side agreement means how they are. That is normally seller or exporter or that party is coming from that agreement. The unilateral contract is primarily a one-sided, legally binding agreement where one party agrees to pay for a specified act. Given that unilateral agreements are one-sided, they are only require pre-arranged commitment for the offer. As an example, We have this experience even in our personal life, day to day. Sometimes I am placed in a notice, I am sticking a notice in outside, loss of the pet, please found, help to find. Right? Who is helping? We are giving this much of money. That is unilateral. I am losing my mobile phone, I am asking others to find this, I am paying this. That is my bond. That is my legal binding with that. Right? One part. Bilateral agreements or bilateral agreements. Now these bilateral agreements, that is between two parties. That is between two parties. Bilateral contract is legally binding between two or more parties. Mainly we can say two parties, bilateral agreement. If that is go for multi-party, that's supposed to be multilateral parties. Where the offerer by the promisor is accepted by the promisee. Promisor is giving the promise and promisee is accepting the promise. Another difference between these two types of contracts is unilateral contract is enforceable when someone chooses to begin fulfilling the act demanded by the offerer. That means if I ask to find my lost pet, if you are finding the pet, then you can demand for the perk. Then you can ask, now you have to fulfill your agreement, pay me. But in other hand, in bilateral contracts, the bilateral contract is enforceable from the time when the contract is signed. As an example, two parties are signing the agreement. Once they sign, they can enforce. Right? When the participants are more than two, then this becomes a multilateral agreement. Then there are three types of agreements: unilateral agreements, bilateral agreements, and multilateral agreements. Unilateral agreements mean only one party, one-sided agreement. Bilateral agreement, two parties, and multilateral agreements, two or more parties. More than two, we can say multilateral agreements. There are multilateral agreements between some countries, right? And if SAARC countries are signing for agreement, trade agreement, then that is multilateral agreement. If two countries are signing for agreement, bilateral agreements. As an example, think India and we are signing trade agreement, then that is bilateral agreement. And we SAARC people sign in agreement, that is bilateral agreement. That is not bilateral agreement, that is multilateral agreement. Another example is before start European Union in 1957, all European people, all European country representatives meet in the Rome and they sign an agreement. That is multilateral agreements. Not only one, European region means that is entire European continent. Then all people are in European Union. But there are some problems. I will explain in the next slide. Like when I explain something who are in the European Union, who are not in the European Union, reasons for and why, how they withdraw from the European Union, I will explain. Right? Anyhow, in the global environment, definitely we have to understand these agreements. Unilateral, bilateral, and multilateral agreements. This is very important part. Here I want to explain what are the international organizations and agreements and all these main three context. European Union. The European Union is European Union the European Union, that is group of 27 countries, right? They operate as a one cohesive economy, one economy as European, right? They are gathered not only economically, politically, economically, right? Countries are there, and they have came for an agreement for common currency, euro currency, that is for European Union. Out of these 27 countries, 19 of countries are using euro as their official currency, right? European Union, this is started in 1957, but later that was expanded. Many countries with that particular country. But this international context is always changing. We can't say that they are always in that country, that agreement, this agreement. That's why this internationally, some international policies are changing of countries. As an example, think G7 is the Group 7. Group 7 later that became Group 8. Why? The politics has changed. Russia became the member of G7 once they withdrew from the Soviet Union just after dissolve of the European Union. Sorry, not the European Union, Soviet Union, right? And Soviet Union breaks into different parts, and they became sovereign countries. Then Russia became sovereign countries. Now there is no Soviet Union. Then what happened to the Russia? Russia joined with the G7, then that became G8, Group 8. Most powerful 7 countries were there. Then Russia was a very powerful country. Then they also did that. Brexit. This, just think. That's why I said some are in European Union, some are not in European Union. And international context is always changing. Right? International context is always changing. European Union, Brexit is the one situation that is 2 words, British and exit. British exits from where? British exits from European Union. British exits from European Union. Why they exit? They exit after referendum. No country can't just leave, right? No European country can't, no member country can just withdraw from the European Union by sending a letter. Hereafter we are not in. No. Definitely they have to conduct a referendum. Referendum means, what is a referendum? Referendum is the entire country to be approved to withdraw from this union. That is a referendum, right? Referendum. All parties to be what? Right? In the referendum, only 2 parties are there. Just like other elections, there are no few parties. Right? Sri Lanka, we have one experience about referendum. That was in 1981. A useless referendum. Right? This is not the time to discuss that. Anyhow, we also had one experience about referendum. British, they conduct a referendum and ask people, are we going to leave or are we going to remain in the European Union? Then the majority says, leave the European Union. They don't want tie up with the European Union. This is starting member, right? But England, they left. I think the Ireland, they are still with, right? Anyhow, Brexit is British exit. Now, British exit, they conducted referendum on 2016, June 23rd. Then people voted exit from the or withdraw from the European Union. Left. Officially, they withdraw from the European Union from 2020, last week. Right? The time is 11 p.m. Greenwich. That is big news those days. British exit. Brexit. BRICS. What is BRICS? BRICS. BRICS is just a building material. No? BRICS. It says for 5 countries: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. In your study text, that S not indicated, correct it. S is South Africa. Right? BRICS is the acronym going to the associate 5 major emerging economies. 5 major emerging economies: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. The BRICS members are known for their significant influence on the regional affairs since 2009. They signed in this 2009. Actually, this was started unofficially. BRICS started unofficially. The governments of the BRICS state have met annually at formal summit. Now all those people, they are meeting at an annual summit. As an example, think South African people in the SAARC summit. Annually we are conducting in different countries SAARC summit, but annually. Sri Lanka also conducted several times the SAARC summit. And Commonwealth we conducted, and non-aligned summit. They are the annual general meeting is very important in any country, any member country. But previous, then as an example, I think we are meeting this year 2021, and we are deciding who is the hosting country for the next one. Who is the hosting country for the next summit, and that particular president or prime minister become the president of the summit. The SAARC summit also operating in that way. As an example, think now we are conducting this year. As an example, think last week we conducted in India, and now Modi got the presidency. He is the chairman of the SAARC summit. India is holding that. That is the hosting country that year. In that particular summit, they are deciding in next year who is the hosting country. As an example, think they decide Sri Lanka. In Sri Lanka, what is happening? In Sri Lanka's presidents are supposed to be the chairperson of the SAARC summit. That is the way happening, not only in this. That is happening everywhere. And non-alignment summit, 2 times we got the presidency. One for Madam Sirma Bandaranaike's period. She became the chairperson of non-alignment summit. And I think President Rajapaksa, Mahinda Rajapaksa also became member. Right? The chairperson of non-alignment summit, right? And then that is the way these international organizations are behaving, right? Okay, we'll go for the summary. Right. Classification of international trade. We classified international trade into Commonly trade we classify to two, local and international. Local trade divided to wholesale and retail. International trade divided to import and export. That we discussed. And we compared what is the difference between wholesale and retail. And international trade. Why? What are the importances of international trade? What are the reasons for international trade? That we discussed. Right? That we discussed. Earning more profit opportunities, and access raw materials, competitive advantages, tax benefits, risks, minimizing the risk, easy disposal of surplus, we can export our surplus, production surplus to other countries, enhanced reputation, and some Incoterms of shipping, CPT, DAP, CIF, FOB, an international payment method, cash in advance, cash in advance, letter of credit, document recollection, and open account, consignment, and procedures of import and export, and what are the required documents in foreign trade, and the global trade environment, trade sanction, agreements, bilateral and multilateral agreements, and main three contexts: European Union, Brexit and BRICS.